But elementary school was nothing compared to high school. By the time I started high school, I was 120 kilos. My mother didn't see anything wrong with it. If anything, she seemed proud, as if my weight validated her own.
At least you'll never be prettier than me.
High school was a battlefield, and I was the favorite target. Every day was a new form of torment. In the hallways, boys would bump into me on purpose, acting like they had hit a wall.
Whoa, watch out everybody. Celine's taking up the whole hallway.
The girls weren't any kinder. They would snicker behind their hands or take pictures of me when I wasn't looking, posting them online with cruel captions like #whale-watching, #big-please. Gym class was the worst. The teacher would always make us run laps, and I'd struggle to keep up, gasping for air while everyone else sprinted ahead.
Come on, Seline, you're slowing us down.
The teacher didn't help.
You need to push yourself harder, Seline. Maybe if you ran more, you'd lose some weight.
I hated gym class. I hated the locker room even more. Changing in front of the other girls was humiliating. They would point and laugh, making cruel comments about my body.
I didn't know they made bras that big.
When I was little, I wasn't fat. In fact, I was the picture of normalcy, bright-eyed, playful, and energetic. My mother used to be a model and earned a lot of money before getting pregnant with me. Unfortunately, she and my father weren't married, and he left her during the pregnancy, claiming she was getting too fat. She was furious and began hating me even before I was born. She believed I had taken away her chance of becoming a superstar. Ever since giving birth to me, my mom tried everything she could to lose weight, but all her efforts were in vain. This led to her frustration, and she came to resent me because of it.
I wouldn't be like this if I hadn't had you.
Those words became her mantra. At first, I didn't understand what she meant, but as I got older, the blame became more explicit.
Do you know what pregnancy does to a woman's body? Do you know how hard it is to lose weight after having a child?
She blamed me for being the cause of her excess weight. The worst part was when she began fattening me up too. She disguised her resentment as care. She began feeding me enormous portions of food, constantly insisting I needed to eat more.
You're a growing girl. You need your strength.
But it wasn't just the portions. She started giving me these strange supplements, telling me they would make me healthy. I didn't know then that they were appetite stimulants. All I knew was that I was always hungry, always eating, and always gaining weight. By the time I was in elementary school, I was heavier than all my classmates. At first, the teasing was mild, just whispers and giggles when I walk by. But as I got older and bigger, the cruelty intensified.
Hey, Seline, are you hiding snacks in your backpack?
The group burst into laughter. I always tried to ignore them, but it was hard when they followed me everywhere, mimicking the way I walked or pretending to wobble like they were carrying an imaginary weight. Lunch was the worst. I could feel their eyes on me as I ate, judging every bite I took.
Do you ever stop eating? No wonder you're so fat.
I wanted to disappear. I learned to eat quickly, shoveling food into my mouth so I could leave the cafeteria before the insults started. But elementary school was nothing compared to high school. By the time I started high school, I was 120 kilos. My mother didn't see anything wrong with it. If anything, she seemed proud, as if my weight validated her own.
At least you'll never be prettier than me.
High school was a battlefield, and I was the favorite target. Every day was a new form of torment. In the hallways, boys would bump into me on purpose, acting like they had hit a wall.
Whoa, watch out everybody. Celine's taking up the whole hallway.
The girls weren't any kinder. They would snicker behind their hands or take pictures of me when I wasn't looking, posting them online with cruel captions like #whale-watching, #big-please. Gym class was the worst. The teacher would always make us run laps, and I'd struggle to keep up, gasping for air while everyone else sprinted ahead.
Come on, Seline, you're slowing us down.
The teacher didn't help.
You need to push yourself harder, Seline. Maybe if you ran more, you'd lose some weight.
I hated gym class. I hated the locker room even more. Changing in front of the other girls was humiliating. They would point and laugh, making cruel comments about my body.
I didn't know they made bras that big.
On gym days, by the time lunch rolled around, I would already be exhausted. But skipping lunch wasn't an option. My mother packed my meals, and they were always massive. She insisted I eat every bite, even if it meant enduring the stares and whispers.
She's eating for two, herself and her shadow.
The bullying wasn't just verbal. One day, I found my locker filled with garbage. Someone had written "pig pen" on the door in permanent marker. I reported it to the school counselor, but nothing changed. If anything, it got worse.
Did the fat girl cry to the teacher?
Even teachers weren't always sympathetic. During a science project, we had to pair up, but no one wanted to work with me.
Come on, someone pair up with Seline. She's not contagious.
The class erupted into laughter. I was so embarrassed that I sat there wishing I could vanish. Home was no better. My mother's resentment had only grown over the years. She didn't hit me, but I'd have preferred if she did, because her words hurt more.
No one's ever going to love you looking like that. You're lucky you have me.
But she wasn't there for me. She was the one who made me this way, yet she acted like I was some kind of burden she had to bear. When I tried to eat less, she'd force food on me.
Don't waste my money. Finish your plate.
She controlled every aspect of my life, making sure I never forgot that I was the reason for her unhappiness.
If I hadn't had you, I'd still be beautiful.
By sophomore year, I started avoiding school whenever I could. I'd fake being sick just to stay home, even if it meant enduring my mother's scorn.
You're so lazy. No wonder everyone hates you.
I spent most of my time in my room, hiding from the world. But even there, I couldn't escape the weight of everything. The insults, the isolation, the constant feeling of not being enough. One day, after a particularly brutal gym class, I came home and locked myself in the bathroom. I stared at my reflection, hating what I saw. I didn't just hate my body, I hated myself. I knew I had to do something, but I had no idea what to do or where to even start from. When I walked out of high school with my diploma in hand, it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like an escape. The weight of years of torment hung over me, but I knew one thing. I couldn't stay. Not in that house. Not with my mother. That night, I did something I never thought I'd have the courage to do. While my mother snored in the next room, I crept into her purse and stole every bill I could find. It wasn't much, but it was enough to get me away. The first month on the streets was brutal. I stayed in cheap motels when I could and slept on park benches when I couldn't. I stretched every dollar as far as it would go, eating just enough to survive. One evening, as I sat on a bench, hungry and exhausted, a man approached me. He was older, maybe in his late 40s, with kind eyes and a warm smile. He said I looked like I could use some help and offered to help me. I hesitated, unsure if I could trust him, but desperation overrode my fear. I told him my story without him even asking. The bullying, the abuse, everything. Instead of pitying me, he looked angry and somewhat determined.
You've been through hell, but you're still here. Let me help you.
He gave me a place to stay and became the first person in my life to believe in me. He told me he was going to help with my transformation. We started small, walk around the block, cutting out junk food. Then came gym sessions, meal plans, and therapy. It wasn't easy. There were days when I wanted to give up, when the voice in my head, the one my mother planted there, told me I was worthless. But every time I faltered, he was there to push me forward.
You're stronger than you think, Seline. Don't give up now.
After a year, I hardly recognized myself. The weight I'd carried, both physically and emotionally, was all gone. My reflection in the mirror showed a confident, beautiful woman. I couldn't believe my new look. A few months later, the man wanted me to move abroad with him, to start fresh in a new country. But I couldn't. Not yet. There was unfinished business to take care of. I sued my mother for years of abuse, for the torment she had inflicted on me. I didn't let her see me until we faced each other in court. She was shocked to her bones. She hadn't seen me in over a year, and the transformation left her speechless. She cried and begged for forgiveness.
I'm sorry. I didn't know what I was doing. Please, Seline, I'm your mother.
But her apologies meant nothing. You're not my mother. A mother would never do the things you did to their own child. You're my tormentor, and now you'll pay for it. She was convicted of child abuse and sentenced to prison. As I walked out of the courtroom, I felt lighter than ever. Moving to a new country was like stepping into another world. I continued working on my body, pushing myself to new limits. One day, I started an Instagram account to document my journey. 2 months later, a modeling agency reached out, saying they loved my body and I had potential. When I officially began modeling for them, a month later, I couldn't believe it. At the same time, I enrolled in college to study medicine. By the time I graduated, I was juggling 2 careers, a model in high demand and a doctor saving lives. When I was invited back to my birth country to assist with 3 critical cases at the biggest hospital, I took 2 weeks off modeling. The moment I stepped off the plane, I was greeted by a sea of familiar faces. My old classmates stood there, holding signs and cheering as if they had always been my biggest supporters.
Seline, you look amazing.
I couldn't believe my eyes. There were so many cameras there, so I decided to get back at them. I raised my voice so everyone could hear. You bullied me for years, called me names, made me feel worthless. Now you want to celebrate with me? No, thank you. Kindly stay as far as possible away from me. I do not need your fake love. The cameras captured everything. One by one, they lowered their signs and rushed away in shame. At the hospital, I focused on my work. I needed to save lives. But when I reviewed the files for my next patient after the first one, I was shocked. It was her. My mother. She had become morbidly obese, riddled with health problems, and stuck to a wheelchair. The prison doctors couldn't handle her condition, so she had been transferred here. When I entered the room, her eyes widened in recognition.
Seline, my baby.
She was crying, but I didn't care. I knew exactly how to treat her, but I didn't. Not right away. I delayed her treatment for 3 days, watching as her condition worsened. By the time I finally acted, it was too late. She'd gone beyond what anyone could save. When I returned abroad, I received the news that she had died. I didn't cry. I didn't feel sad. She deserved it. As for my classmates, news about what I said to them spread, and soon it was their turn to be bullied by the media. They were getting the worst of it. I shared a video I had made of them bullying me years ago, and the media went wild. They went after each and every friend who had taken part in bullying me. Some had to move to a different state, while others deleted their social media accounts. It didn't take long before I started seeing my classmates being harassed online. Some were labeled fake friends, and they had to set their accounts to private to avoid all the insults they were receiving. I couldn't be happier. All those who hurt me got what they deserved. Margaret's cruelty reached its peak. She visited the hospital the day after the delivery, sweeping into the room like a queen inspecting her subjects. She glanced at Lily, then at me, her expression unreadable.
Oh my goodness, look at her. She's so small.
Her words felt like a slap, but before I could respond, she began laughing.
And that nose. My world, it's huge.
I was horrified by her behavior. She laughed even louder.
Well, I suppose she couldn't help it. These things do come from the mother's side, don't they?
My chest tightened as I pulled Lily closer, shielding her from the venom in Margaret's words. Adam was standing by the window and glaring at his mother.
Mom, that's enough.
Oh, Adam, don't be so sensitive. I'm only saying what everyone's thinking. The child is hideous. It looks just like its mother. I knew this day would come. Moreover, I wanted a boy to carry the family name, not some useless girl.
Adam clenched his jaw, but said nothing more. When I married into the Kingsley family, I knew I wasn't stepping into a fairy tale. Margaret Kingsley, my mother-in-law, had made that crystal clear from the start. From the moment I met her, she'd sized me up with a look that felt like a scalpel slicing through my very being.
Well, I suppose you're pretty in an understated way. Adam always did have a peculiar taste.
It wasn't the words that stung, it was the tone. That dry, condescending lilt that made it clear I'd never be good enough for her only child. I tried to brush it off, to tell myself she didn't mean it that way, but deep down, I knew better. Margaret didn't make offhanded comments. She made calculated strikes. Before Adam and I even got engaged, Margaret took it upon herself to test me, as though I were a lab specimen. She invited me to tea one afternoon, a supposedly warm gesture that turned into a trial by fire.
Selena, dear, do you enjoy baking?
I smiled, eager to please her. I do, actually. I love making desserts, especially cakes.
Oh, how quaint. Adam doesn't care for sweets, though. He's always preferred savory dishes, but I suppose you wouldn't know that yet.
Her smile was sharp enough to cut glass, and I felt like a fool. The entire conversation was peppered with subtle jabs, each one meant to remind me that she knew her son better, that I was an outsider. Once, she accidentally spilled red wine on the white dress I wore to a family dinner, then laughed it off like it was nothing.
Oh, Selena, you really should be more careful with delicate fabrics.
I bit my tongue, refusing to give her the satisfaction of seeing me react. When Adam proposed, I thought things might get better. I hoped that maybe Margaret would accept me once she realized how much Adam and I loved each other. But if anything, her hostility escalated. During wedding planning, she found fault with every choice I made.
Red roses? For a June wedding? How bold of you.
Bold was Margaret's way of saying tacky. She insisted on reviewing the guest list, nitpicking my choices as though I'd invited criminals instead of childhood friends.
You're inviting her? Isn't she the one who got divorced last year? That's hardly appropriate for such an occasion.
By the time our wedding day arrived, I was emotionally drained. Margaret had managed to overshadow every joyful moment with her disapproving stares and backhanded compliments. But I told myself it didn't matter. I was marrying Adam, not his mother. I was wrong. Marriage didn't make Margaret relent, it gave her new ammunition. She visited our home unannounced, inspecting every corner like a drill sergeant.
Oh, you haven't hung curtains yet? Adam always preferred a touch of elegance in his spaces.
She criticized my cooking, my cleaning, even the way I arranged the furniture. Nothing I did was ever good enough. The worst, though, was when I became pregnant with my daughter, Lily. I thought Margaret might soften at the news, that she'd finally see me as family. But instead, she doubled down.
I hope the baby takes after Adam. His genes are much stronger.
Her disdain for me seeped into every conversation about my pregnancy. She questioned my choices at every turn.
Are you sure you should be eating that? You wouldn't want to gain too much weight. It's hard to bounce back after the baby, especially for someone with your build.
Her words stuck like barbs, each one designed to chip away at my confidence. I tried to stay strong for Adam, but even he struggled to stand up to her. When Lily was born, Margaret's cruelty reached its peak. She visited the hospital the day after the delivery, sweeping into the room like a queen inspecting her subjects. She glanced at Lily, then at me, her expression unreadable.
Oh my goodness, look at her. She's so small.
Her words felt like a slap, but before I could respond, she began laughing.
And that nose. My world, it's huge.
I was horrified by her behavior. She laughed even louder.
Well, I suppose she couldn't help it. These things do come from the mother's side, don't they?
My chest tightened as I pulled Lily closer, shielding her from the venom in Margaret's words. Adam was standing by the window and glaring at his mother.
Mom, that's enough.
Oh, Adam, don't be so sensitive. I'm only saying what everyone's thinking. The child is hideous. It looks just like its mother. I knew this day would come. Moreover, I wanted a boy to carry the family name, not some useless girl.
Adam clenched his jaw, but said nothing more. I knew he wanted to say something so badly. But Margaret was his mother, and confronting her was never easy. Her visit was short, but her words lingered long after she'd gone. Every time I looked at my beautiful, tiny Lily, I could still hear Margaret's laughter ringing in my ears. As Lily grew, Margaret's mockery didn't stop. Instead, it intensified. Each visit was another opportunity for her to hurl insults disguised as observations.
Oh, look at that. She's still so petite. Is she even growing?
Lily was 3 when Margaret first turned her comments directly to her.
You know, sweetheart, you'd be so much prettier if your nose wasn't quite so big for your face.
Lily's tiny hands flew to her face, covering her nose as her wide eyes turned to me, as if she was searching for reassurance. I felt my heart shatter. Lily, you're perfect just the way you are. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise. Margaret snorted from her place on the couch.
Well, Selena, there's no harm in a little honesty. It builds character. Don't lie to the child all in the name of being a good parent.
I wanted to scream, to throw her out of my home and tell her to never come back. but Adam begged me to be patient when I reported her to him for the umpteenth time.
She's my mom. I'll talk to her, I promise.
He did talk to her, time and time again, but Margaret never listened. She waved off his concerns like they were trivial inconveniences.
Oh, Adam, stop being dramatic. Children need to learn to take a little criticism. It's good for them.
By the time Lily was 5, the damage was done. She'd started avoiding mirrors, refusing to let me tie her hair back because it made her nose look bigger. She was quieter, shyer, retreating into herself in ways that broke me a little more every day. One night, as I was tucking her into bed, she looked up at me with tear-filled eyes.
Mommy, why is my nose so big?
I froze, my heart twisting painfully. I smoothed her hair back and kissed her forehead. Your nose is perfect, baby. It's part of what makes you, you. And you're the most beautiful girl in the whole world.
But Grandma says it's ugly.
I hugged my daughter and cried. How could Margaret do this? How could she take my bright, bubbly child and make her feel like she was anything less than perfect? The next time Margaret visited, I couldn't hold back. Margaret, you need to stop commenting on Lily's appearance. You're hurting her.
Oh, for heaven's sake, Selena, don't be so dramatic. She's a child. Children don't get hurt. And she needs to know about her situation now to prepare her for when she'll start getting bullied. I'm helping you since you're so dumb and you're being ungrateful.
I couldn't believe my ears. Are you even listening to yourself? She's 5 years old and already insecure about the way she looks because of you. You're already planning about her getting bullied? This isn't harmless, Margaret. It's cruel.
Cruel? Don't be ridiculous. I'm just being honest. If she can't handle a little truth, that's on you as a parent.
Adam stepped in then, his voice louder than I'd ever heard it.
Mom, enough. You're done. If you can't respect Selena and Lily, you're not welcome here anymore.
What? You're cutting me off because of Selena and her imbecile child.
That child is my daughter and your granddaughter. She's new to this world, yet you're already making her life so miserable. If you can't shut up and be nice to my wife and daughter, then stay away from us.
It wasn't an easy decision, cutting Margaret out of our lives. But it was necessary. Lily deserved to grow up feeling loved and cherished, not ridiculed and diminished. 2 nights after cutting Margaret out of our lives, I woke to Lily's terrified screams. Adam and I rushed into her room to find her trembling, her little face pale as she pointed to her bed. A horrible doll covered in blood sat there, its painted smile twisted into something sinister.
It was staring at me.
I hugged her tightly, assuring her it was just a toy, but the unease settled deep in my chest. We hadn't put the doll there, and neither had Lily. Adam checked the house, but all the doors and windows were locked. We threw the doll out, thinking that would be the end of it, but the next night another appeared. A different doll, just as terrifying, and the night after that. Lily was too scared to sleep alone, so Adam and I took turns staying with her, but even then, she would wake up screaming. We doubled security, installing cameras and reinforced locks. We even modified our door, electrifying it at night. But the dolls kept coming. It felt as though someone was mocking our attempts to protect our daughter. A week later, just as I was beginning to wonder if we were imagining things, we heard another scream. This time, it wasn't Lily. It was an adult's scream, sharp and painful. Adam and I bolted out of bed and rushed to the hallway. And there she was. Margaret lay crumpled on the floor near the door, groaning in pain. She had been electrocuted trying to break in, a doll clutched in her hand.
Mom, what are you doing here?
She whimpered, struggling to speak. But from the few words we got, she confessed that she'd been the one tormenting Lily with the hideous dolls. Adam and I were shocked and pissed, but we called an ambulance. However, even before the paramedics arrived, it was clear something was terribly wrong. Margaret's face had drooped on one side, her speech slurred and incomprehensible. The doctors confirmed it was a severe stroke, one that left her entire right side paralyzed. She'd need constant care, but Margaret insisted on returning to her home. For weeks, she tried to reach out to us. She apologized through letters, voicemails, and even messengers, but her words felt hollow. The memories of her cruelty, the years of torment, and the nightmare she'd inflicted on Lily were too fresh. Adam picked up her call one day.
You made your choices, Mom. I'm protecting my family now from monsters like you.
I agreed. We didn't owe her forgiveness, not after everything she'd done. Margaret lived out her days alone in that cold, empty house. The calls stopped after a year, and soon, so did the letters. 2 years after that night, we received word that Margaret had passed away. A neighbor found her lifeless body slumped in a chair. She'd died as she lived, alone, with no one to hold her hand. I thought I'd feel relief or even closure, but all I felt was a dull ache. Not sadness for her, but for what could have been. Margaret could have chosen love, but instead, she chose bitterness. And in the end, it consumed her. Thanks for watching. When our father wasn't home, Evelyn's true colors came out. One afternoon, Amy spilled her juice at the table. It was just an innocent accident, but Evelyn freaked out.
You stupid little brat. Can't you do anything right?
I'm sorry, it was just an accident.
Sorry isn't good enough. Clean it up now, or I'll be forced to make you wish you never had done it.
My chest tightened. I wanted to stand up for Amy, but I was scared. I had always been taught to respect adults, and it felt wrong to talk back or question one. Evelyn was mean, but she was also sneaky. Whenever we had enough of being bullied, we tried to tell Dad, but she'd somehow always convince him that we were exaggerating. Evelyn's cruelty didn't stop there. She'd call us names, hide our toys, and sometimes even deny us meals if we upset her. Once, she locked Amy in the closet for crying too loudly. It was such a small space that she had to stand the entire time. When Dad got home that evening, Amy was too scared to tell him what happened. Hi, my name is Chloe, and this is the story of how my sister Amy and I fought to save our family from a woman who almost tore it apart. It's quite the story, so bear with me. It all started when we were little girls. Our mom passed away when I was 6 and Amy was just 4. She was amazing, and we loved her greatly, but she grew sick out of nowhere. And sadly, her illness progressed quickly, and before we knew it, she was gone. After that, it was just us and our dad, Charles. He did his best to raise us while running his company, but honestly, he was overwhelmed. We loved him so much, but even we could tell he needed help. Between grieving the loss of his wife, growing a massive company, and raising 2 young grieving girls, it was a bit too much for him.
Girls, I love you both more than anything in the world, but I need help. I hope that you two don't mind that I've hired someone to help us out around the house. Her name is Evelyn, and she'll be taking care of you when I'm working.
Do we really need a nanny?
Yes, sweetheart. It'll make things easier for all of us. She will spend lots of time with you two and give you all the attention that you two need that I can't supply.
Well, Dad, if you think it's a good idea, then we'll do our best to make it work. If you chose her, then we're sure that she will work out great. At first, Evelyn seemed great. She was all smiles and kindness when Dad was around. She cooked our meals, helped us with homework, and told Dad how much she adored us. She even would bake all kinds of pies, cookies, and other treats. She really did seem to be a good fit for our family. But that didn't last long. When our father wasn't home, Evelyn's true colors came out. One afternoon, Amy spilled her juice at the table. It was just an innocent accident, but Evelyn freaked out.
You stupid little brat. Can't you do anything right?
I'm sorry, it was just an accident.
Sorry isn't good enough. Clean it up now, or I'll be forced to make you wish you never had done it.
My chest tightened. I wanted to stand up for Amy, but I was scared. I had always been taught to respect adults, and it felt wrong to talk back or question one. Evelyn was mean, but she was also sneaky. Whenever we had enough of being bullied, we tried to tell Dad, but she'd somehow always convince him that we were exaggerating. Evelyn's cruelty didn't stop there. She'd call us names, hide our toys, and sometimes even deny us meals if we upset her. Once, she locked Amy in the closet for crying too loudly. It was such a small space that she had to stand the entire time. When Dad got home that evening, Amy was too scared to tell him what happened. Even though I wasn't the one in the closet, I was just as scared to mention to our father for fear that I would have to spend the next day standing in the closet in the dark.
How were the girls today? Did they give you any trouble?
Oh, they were angels.
I'm glad to hear it.
I wanted to scream the truth, but I knew he wouldn't believe me. Evelyn had him wrapped around her finger. I was terrified that if I did tell him what had actually happened, that she would find some new way of torturing us. She was so sadistic that I wondered just how far her cruelty could go. That's when things got even worse. Evelyn always made a point of making dinner and eating with us, and then spending time talking with our father afterwards. It didn't take long for the two of them to develop a relationship, and the two of them started dating. Amy and I were horrified, but Dad seemed happier than he'd been in years. Then one evening, he dropped a bombshell.
Girls, I have wonderful news. I've proposed to Evelyn and she said yes.
You're marrying her?
I know it's a big change, but she loves us, and I think this will be good for our family. It's been so long since we were a full family.
Amy and I exchanged worried glances. We knew we had to do something or else Evelyn would officially be our mother. There was no telling what would happen if that happened. A few weeks before the wedding, Amy and I were playing in the living room when we overheard Evelyn talking on the phone. She was talking far too loudly, and her voice drifted over to us from the kitchen.
Yes, I'm sending them to that private school. The staff there are even worse than me. Those little brats won't know what hit them. Yes, then I'll have Charles all to myself, and I have no doubt that I'll eventually be able to convince him that they are trouble and not worth keeping around.
Amy and I were terrified. We snuck upstairs to our rooms and spoke quietly to each other.
Did she just say she's sending us away?
Yes, she did. And by the sounds of it, the people she is sending us to are worse than her. We have to stop her. But we need proof.
But how do we stop her?
We thought long and hard and eventually came up with a plan. Amy and I started recording Evelyn whenever Dad wasn't home. We'd hide our phones and provoke her just enough to get her to lose her temper. It, of course, didn't take too long. She had such a very short fuse. The first such incident was when I dropped a plate she handed me. It shattered on the floor and she instantly went into a rage.
You're worthless. No wonder your mother left you.
It was an accident, and it's just a plate. Why would you mention my mother?
Because I have no doubt that she knew that you two were vile pieces of crap, and that she probably died rather than having to live her life knowing she gave birth to such filth.
We caught everything. The name-calling, the threats. We even caught her talking on the phone when she laid out her plan to send us away while talking to one of her other friends. By the time the wedding day arrived, we had more than enough evidence, and we knew that we had her dead to rights. The day of the wedding, the church was packed, and everyone was smiling as the ceremony began. The officiant went through the normal procession, and when he arrived at the time where he asked if anyone objected, Amy and I stood up. We had it all planned out and had even set up everything.
Does anyone have any reason or objection to why these two shouldn't be wed? If so, speak now or forever hold your peace.
We do.
Girls, what are you doing?
You need to see this. It's important, Dad.
We had connected our phones to a projector, and the videos played on a large screen for everyone to see. The room fell silent as Evelyn's true nature was revealed. Gasps echoed as she insulted us, threatened us, and laughed about sending us away. Then when we showed her locking Amy in the closet, people began to murmur angrily.
Oh my God, is this true? Evelyn, can you explain this?
They're lying. They've always hated me.
But the evidence was undeniable. Dad's face hardened. It was rather hard to deny reality when we showed exactly what kind of person she truly was.
You've got to be kidding me. How could they be lying when the footage is right there on the screen? You've been a monster to them this whole time. The wedding is off. Get out of my sight, Evelyn.
You'll regret this.
Evelyn's eyes went wide and her face became bright red as she grabbed a candlestick and rushed towards our dad. Amy and I tried to protect Dad, but Evelyn was strong and she flung us away as she swung the candlestick at our father. Before she could do any real damage, several guests rushed forward, pulling her away as others called for the authorities. The police arrived moments later, but Evelyn heard them coming and managed to flee the church. As she ran into the street, she didn't look where she was going, and she didn't see the bus coming. The impact was violent and horrific. Ambulances showed up and Evelyn was taken to the hospital, but her injuries were too severe, and she didn't survive. Dad was devastated, but also relieved that he finally saw the truth before he had committed to marrying her. And we were grateful that the nightmare was finally over.
I'm so sorry, girls. I should have noticed what was going on. I should have listened to you. I promise I'll never let anything like this happen again.
True to his word, Dad spent more time with us after that. He eventually hired a new nanny, a kind woman named Mrs. Bennett, who treated us with love and respect. For the first time in years, we felt like a real family again. Looking back, I'm grateful that Amy and I stood up for ourselves. We learned that sometimes you have to fight for the people you love, even when it's hard. And as for Evelyn, well, I'll just say this. Karma has a way of catching up with everyone in the end. Thanks for watching. The next week, Jacob continued to be cruel and provided more than enough ammunition against himself.
I was thinking about giving you a very important case, but unfortunately, it would require a lawyer that was willing to stand up for their convictions.
Excuse me? Honestly, Jacob, why do you keep saying such hurtful puns?
Oh? Did I hurt your feelings? I figured that since you are only half a person, that maybe you had thicker skin. Honestly, I figured you would have quit by now. I mean, who has ever heard of a lawyer that was in a wheelchair? You make this whole firm look pathetic. Why don't you just quit already? Why must you insist on trying to force us to treat an invalid and useless person like yourself as an equal?
Because I am an equal, Jacob. I'm a human being, damn it. And you have no right to treat me like this.
Of course I do, because I'm normal and you're just a freak. So what are you going to do about it? Complain to Human Resources?
No, I'm going to sue the pants off of you.
Ha! If you do, the firm will just protect me. It will be you versus the rest of the firm. I would like to see you try.
Hi there, my name is Gloria, and I'm 28 years old. I have been working at the same law firm for a few years now, but it's been a bit of a bumpy road. I had always known that it would be hard to prove myself to be a competent lawyer, but I had never thought that it would be as hard as it has been. It wasn't the cases, though, that have been the most challenging. It's the senior partner that I work under. I should probably explain a little, though. You see, I was born without the ability to use my legs and have been forced to use a wheelchair my whole life. Honestly, it never bothered me. After all, it's the only life I have ever known, and I never let it slow me down. I have done all the normal things most people do, like learn how to drive a car, go to prom, and have even participated in marathons as well. I may be different, but I have never used it as an excuse to hold me back from doing whatever it is that I set my mind to. However, when I joined the firm, I was assigned to work under Jacob. He was a senior partner, and when we first met, he seemed impressed with me. But that was because we met during a sit-down meeting, and as we were wrapping up the meeting, Jacob saw that I was in a wheelchair, and he made a sour expression. I knew instantly that my disability was going to be a problem with him. From that point on, he always made a point of saying things that were very inappropriate.
Hey, Gloria, can you run this paperwork down to the second floor? Oh, what am I saying? I guess I should find someone that can actually run.
Jacob, I can take that paperwork down there for you.
Oh, thank you, Gloria. You are such a team player. Having a positive attitude like that will really give you a leg up in this firm.
The way he would smile when he would say such things was always so incredibly annoying. The worst thing about it, though, was that the lead of the Human Resources Department was a very good friend of Jacob's. So even when I would file complaints against him, they would go unheard. It was incredibly infuriating, but I didn't feel like I could do anything about it. After all, I was only a junior member of the firm, and I felt that if I left the firm, that I would have nearly an impossible time finding a position in another firm. And so I decided that I just had to put up with the abuse, at least for the time being. And so for years, I had to put up with Jacob being a jerk. However, not only was he cruel with his remarks about me and my disability, but he also constantly made a point of giving more high-profile cases to other lawyers. He always picked the most mundane and silly cases for me, such as a client that wanted to sue the local meteorologist for always guessing the weather incorrectly, or the man that wanted to sue a restaurant because he didn't think their all-you-could-eat buffet had enough food in it. It felt very depressing, but thankfully I found ways to make myself happy. My favorite outlet was a local charity that helped children with disabilities to feel more comfortable and involved in the community. The volunteers would speak with the children and help them to feel less alone and more confident that they too could make something of themselves despite their disabilities. My favorite was to show the children that were in wheelchairs that they too could participate in marathons or really do the majority of the same things that most people could. I would hold races with the children, and of course I would let them win from time to time so that they felt empowered. It was at one of these events that I met Sasha. She was such a sweet girl, and like me, she had been born without the ability to use her legs. She took an instant liking to me, and we got along wonderfully. After the event was over, I was talking with her while she waited for her parents to pick her up, when a very expensive luxury car pulled up, and out of it stepped one of the founding members of the law firm that I worked at. He and his two brothers had started the law firm years before, and as it turned out, he was Sasha's father.
Hello there. My Sasha has had so many wonderful things to say about you, but you look very familiar. Don't you work for my law firm?
Yes, sir, I do. I work under Jacob.
Oh, that's a shame. That man is such a half-wit. Be honest. What do you think of him?
At first, I wanted to be coy and say that he was a pleasure to work under, but I stopped myself short and decided that this was my chance to get the truth out about him. After all, if the owner of the firm didn't do anything about his toxic behavior, then who would? Especially one that had a daughter that also had a disability. Honestly, sir, he says a lot of very inappropriate things about my disability.
He does? Why haven't you gone to Human Resources to file a formal complaint about such disgusting behavior?
I have, sir. That's the problem. Jacob is best friends with the man that runs the Human Resources department. Every time I have filed a complaint, it just gets brushed under the rug. And as a result, Jacob just keeps making fun of me and uses my disability to give me the worst cases. Other people have been hired after me and have been promoted ahead of me because he refuses to reward me at all.
That will not do. Gloria, I promise that will make this right. Honestly, I've been looking for a reason to let that idiot go, and this gives me a great idea.
Sasha's father's idea was to record all my interactions with Jacob for the next 2 weeks, and for us to use that when he let him go. He even suggested that I should sue him for harassment and discrimination. After all, Jacob would be under the impression that the firm would have his back, but that simply would not be the case, and when he found out, it would be all the sweeter. The next week, Jacob continued to be cruel and provided more than enough ammunition against himself.
I was thinking about giving you a very important case, but unfortunately, it would require a lawyer that was willing to stand up for their convictions.
Excuse me? Honestly, Jacob? Why do you keep saying such hurtful puns?
Oh? Did I hurt your feelings? I figured that since you are only half a person, that maybe you had thicker skin. Honestly, I figured you would have quit by now. I mean, who has ever heard of a lawyer that was in a wheelchair? You make this whole firm look pathetic. Why don't you just quit already? Why must you insist on trying to force us to treat an invalid and useless person like yourself as an equal?
Because I am an equal, Jacob. I'm a human being, damn it. And you have no right to treat me like this.
Of course I do, because I'm normal and you're just a freak. So what are you going to do about it? Complain to Human Resources?
No. I'm going to sue the pants off of you.
Ha! If you do, the firm will just protect me. It will be you versus the rest of the firm. I would like to see you try. No, Jacob. It would be the other way around. Gloria would have the firm defending her, while it is you that would be all alone.
Sasha's father had chosen that moment to appear, and by the look on his face, it was clear that he was about to put Jacob in his place, and I was relishing the moment.
I'm saying that I've been waiting for a reason to get rid of you. You're a terrible lawyer, and the way that you have treated Gloria and the way that you have wrangled in your friend and Human Resources will not stand. Both of you are fired immediately. Now clean out your desk. I want you gone before the end of the day, or I will have you charged with trespassing and have you arrested on top of everything.
True to his word, both Jacob and his friend were indeed fired and were later lead out by security. In the weeks that followed, both men attempted to file wrongful dismissal claims, but once the recording of our last conversation was played in front of court, the judge dismissed their claims. The same recording was later played in court again, when I sued both Jacob and his friend for the ways that they discriminated and harassed me. With the help of several lawyers, I was able to prove my case, and both men were ordered to pay me $100,000 each for the years of pain and suffering that they caused me and for the way they had held my career back. The money was wonderful, of course, and it helped me to finally buy a house. But the greater victory was finally having Jacob and his degenerate friend face consequences for the abuse that they had subjected me to. After they were fired, both men had a very hard time getting another job. No law firm wanted to hire them, and the last I heard, both were forced to get jobs working at a car dealership washing the cars. They barely made minimum wage, and the few times that I saw them, they looked very disheveled and rather sickly. Almost as if losing six-figure salaries and being forced to do manual labor nearly killed them. Also, I heard Jacob's wife filed for a divorce and wants custody of their son. I can imagine how depressed he is. As for me, Sasha's father ended up promoting me and made me a partner in the firm. I was finally able to show how good of a lawyer I was, and I was given some very high-profile cases that really helped me to prove my worth to the firm. So you could say that things have really taken a turn for the better for me. I've also started mentoring Sasha, and she plans on becoming a lawyer as well, which has made her father even more proud of her. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.
I've had enough of your nonsense. You people don't know how to behave. Such inferior animals. What do you mean, you people? I asked, my voice steady but loud enough for the camera to pick up. I guessed that would probably exactly what was needed to tip him over his breaking point. Don't play dumb, Tyson. You know exactly what I mean. Just stop. He started pacing the room, throwing insults left and right. When Mia tried to answer a question, he interrupted her. Kids like you will never amount to anything anyway. Your kind is only good in sports. You're trying my patience. Just shut up and pay attention. And then, the moment we'd been waiting for. He snapped. He picked up a book and hurled it at Jordan, who ducked just in time. Then he turned to me, stormed over, and slapped me across the face. Then he said, "Imagine if the slave trade didn't happen. Some of you wouldn't even be here." All the while, he was calling us names and using slurs that I refused to repeat. The classroom fell silent. No one dared to move. Then, just as the tension reached its peak, the door opened, and in walked the principal, Ms. Reynolds. Hi there, my name is Tyson, and this is the story of what happened to me when I was younger and in the 4th grade. It was quite a year that was full of excitement and chaos. It all started on the first day of school. I'd spent the summer imagining how awesome the year would be. New subjects, new friends, and a brand new teacher. But then I met Mr. Ford. At first glance, Mr. Ford looked like any other teacher. Tall, graying hair, glasses that always seemed to slide down his nose. But it didn't take long to realize that he wasn't like any teacher I'd ever had before. Up to that point in my life, I had never met someone like him. Someone that very clearly didn't like kids like me. Kids who looked like me. And by kids like me, I mean black kids. All right, class, welcome to the 4th grade. I expect discipline and respect in my classroom. Let's see if any of you can meet my standards. Seems like there are a lot of potential troublemakers this year. It was such a strange thing to say. I knew the majority of the kids in the class, and aside from 1 or 2 of them. Like me, they were all pretty good kids. At first I was confused, but I just assumed that he was either joking or that he was just very strict. But as the weeks went on, it became clear that his standards were different, depending on who you were. For example, one day we had a math test. I studied hard for it and felt confident about my answers. When Mr. Ford handed back the tests, I was stunned to see a big red F at the top of mine. I flipped through the pages, comparing my answers to my friend Jake's paper. Jake, who is white, had given the exact same answers as me, but he got an A. Mr. Ford, I think there's been a mistake. I checked my answers, and I think you made a mistake. You think so, huh? Well, no, I made no mistake, Tyson. Maybe if you paid more attention, you'd do better. But I compared my answers to Jake, and you marked them correct on his paper. Well, then I would chalk it up to your very poor handwriting. Maybe if you would write your answers down legibly, I would have marked them correct. That's all on you. My stomach churned. I wanted to argue, but the look on his face told me it wouldn't matter. It wasn't just me either. Other black kids in the class, like my friends Mia and Jordan, started noticing the same pattern. No matter how hard we tried, our work was never good enough for Mr. Ford. Things got worse as the weeks went on. Mr. Ford wasn't just unfair, he was outright cruel and racist. I remember one day in class, Mr. Ford asked me if I could speak to monkeys. The whole class burst into laughter. I was so embarrassed that I felt sad all day. To make matters worse, he had a terrible temper and would lose his cool easily. If one of us answered a question wrong, he'd throw a piece of chalk or even a book at us. He usually missed, but from time to time, he actually hurt one of us. Wrong again, Tyson. Why am I not surprised? Why do you people always say such stupid things? It was at that point that Mr. Ford threw a large piece of chalk at me. The piece hit me in the face just below my right eye.
You can't do that. That's not fair.
Sit down, Mia, unless you want detention for talking back. Although maybe you should get detention. After all, it would be good practice for when you'll undoubtedly end up in prison later in life. I could feel the tension in the room. The sneer on Mr. Ford's face made him look very menacing and hostile. We all finally knew what was happening, but we didn't know what to do about it. That's when Jordan came up with an idea. What if we record him? Like, what if we do a live stream and show what he's doing so everyone can see it? We can send out notifications to all our friends and family members and let them know to watch the live stream. You mean set up a hidden camera? Number. We'll just use one of our phones. We'll prop it up where he can't see it and stream the class. He does something awful every day, so we're pretty much guaranteed to catch something bad.
But what if we get caught?
What's the worst that can happen? He already treats us like garbage. We've got nothing to lose. And maybe we get lucky and he does something really bad and gets fired? It was risky, but we all agreed it was worth a shot. The next day, we set up Mia's phone, my phone, and Jordan's as well. We decided that there was a chance that Mr. Ford might notice one phone and confiscate it, but there was less likely of a chance that he would notice all three. We set them up in the corners of the room, angled just right to capture Mr. Ford's behavior. Then we waited. It didn't take long for Mr. Ford to lose his cool. We started pushing back, asking questions we knew would irritate him. Jordan deliberately gave wrong answers, and Mia challenged his corrections. Within minutes, Mr. Ford's face turned bright red. It was clear that he was very close to exploding. I've had enough of your nonsense. You people don't know how to behave. Such inferior animals. What do you mean, you people? I asked, my voice steady but loud enough for the camera to pick up. I guessed that would probably exactly what was needed to tip him over his breaking point. Don't play dumb, Tyson. You know exactly what I mean. Just stop. He started pacing the room, throwing insults left and right. When Mia tried to answer a question, he interrupted her. Kids like you will never amount to anything anyway. Your kind is only good in sports. You're trying my patience. Just shut up and pay attention. And then, the moment we'd been waiting for, he snapped. He picked up a book and hurled it at Jordan, who ducked just in time. Then he turned to me, stormed over, and slapped me across the face. Then he said, "Imagine if the slave trade didn't happen. Some of you wouldn't even be here." All the while, he was calling us names and using slurs that I refused to repeat. The classroom fell silent. No one dared to move. Then, just as the tension reached its peak, the door opened and in walked the principal, Ms. Reynolds.
Mr. Ford, please come with me.
What's this about? I'm in the middle of a lesson.
We'll discuss it in my office. Now please follow me right now. Children, please just stay here. We won't be longer than a few minutes.
He followed her out, still looking baffled. As soon as the door closed, Mia grabbed her phone and ended the live stream. We knew we'd done it. Word spread quickly, and by the end of the day, the entire school knew about what had happened. Later, we found out that one of the parents who had been watching the live stream showed up at the school. They confronted Mr. Ford while he waited in the principal's office. The parent barged in and got into a physical fight with Mr. Ford, leaving him bruised and battered before the police arrived. We also heard that Mr. Ford was arrested for child abuse and that he was fired from his job. The live stream was shared online, and the footage went viral. People from all over the country were outraged. But karma wasn't done with him just yet. His wife, after seeing the live stream and having to endure the fallout from it, ended up divorcing him, taking their kids, and moving far away. Years later, when Mr. Ford got out of prison, he found that he couldn't escape his past. Everywhere he went, people recognized him. He changed his name and moved to another country, but no matter where he went, someone always found out who he was. He never found peace again and could never hold down a job for more than a few months at a time. As for me, I kept track of every time he had to move. Each time I heard about it, I felt a sense of justice. What he did to us was unforgivable, and now he continues paying the price for it every single day. Now you may think that what we did to him and the joy I feel about how much he is suffering isn't justified, but I doubt that we were the first class to deal with his racist behavior, so I feel completely justified with what happened to him. Oddly enough, Jordan and Mia are still friends of mine, and just the other day we were talking about old Mr. Ford.
Do you ever feel bad for him? I know he was racist and cruel, but he's suffered a lot.
Not for a second. He deserves every bit of it. Just think about how many kids he must have traumatized in the decades that he spent teaching. People like him just spread their hatred and anger everywhere. It's sad, really. At least now, he can't hurt any more children. And I meant it. Some people might call it petty, but to me, it was justice. Mr. Ford ruined what should have been one of the best years of our young lives. Thanks for watching.